Matthew 11, verses 28 through 30. Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Do you know I run into so many people these days, and their yoke is not easy, their yoke is difficult, and their burden is not light, their burden is heavy. So many people walk through life with a heavy burden, burdened down with debt, burdened down with difficulties in relationship, with their children, in their marriage, at work. Many people carry a heavy load of stress, incredible times of stress in many, many people's lives. This is the opposite of what Yeshua is talking about here. He said, if my yoke is on your neck, your yoke will be easy and the burden will be light. Well, how on earth do we change from difficult and heavy to easy and light? Just think about those two words. Which one more describes your life? Easy and light, or difficult and heavy? And he tells us the way that you get this yoke that's easy and light is two qualities that he walks in. These two qualities are meekness and humility of heart. He says, come and learn from me. If you will take these two qualities of being meek and humble, the consequence is it will bring rest to your soul. Do you know what happens when rest comes to your soul? Your flesh shuts down. It quits working. It quits trying to bring a false comfort into your life. And so what does meekness mean? Do you know meekness is not the same as humility? Humility is a state of being. Humility is who you are. Meekness is what you do. It's a state of action. And when I read my Vine's dictionary, it said meekness is a fruit of power. Meekness is not weakness. What meekness actually is having great resource or power and voluntarily choosing to use a limited percentage of it. So meekness, a simple definition is this: having margins in your life. Do you know that most people today have no margins in their time, no margins in their money? This is a very interesting concept. If meekness means having margins, it means I use my resource in humility. Pride is the opposite. Meekness is I have this much and I voluntarily only use this much. I've got a margin here. Do you know Yeshua was meek? He said, I can call tens of thousands of angels. How many did he ever call? None. How much power did he use? Teeny tiny percentage of what was available. That's meek. Meekness is having margins. I have this much available. I voluntarily choose to use this much. What's the opposite of that? It is I have this much and I voluntarily choose to use this much. Where do I get the extra? I have to borrow. We have a word for that. It's called debt. This was a huge revelation to me. Do you know that the opposite of meekness is debt? So if you want to have a yoke on your life where you are, your yoke is heavy and your yoke is difficult and your burden is heavy, here's how you do it. Become indebted in every area. Indebted in your time. Do you know people borrow time? For example, a husband says to his wife, honey, we're going to go on holiday this weekend. Then an opportunity at work comes up. He can't get off, or he says, I've got to work. They're paying overtime and it's double. And he borrows the time back from his wife that he gave her, that he said they would go on holiday. He says, it's not stolen, it's just borrowed. I'm going to give it to you next month, we'll go. What happens if he doesn't go the next month? He's deeper in debt in his relationship. So he becomes in debt in his time. He's always late for everything because he's double booked everything. That's not meekness in time, that's indebted in time, indebted in money, indebted in relationship, making promises you can't keep. And the consequence of that is more and more and more and more stress comes to your life, and your yoke becomes difficult and your burden becomes heavy. Want to know how to get out of that? The way that you get out of that is embrace in your life meekness and humility. Begin to voluntarily establish some boundaries on your time, some boundaries on your money. Don't borrow time. Don't borrow money. Walk in meekness. Establish margins in your time, margins in your money, margins in your relationship. If you will do that, have margins in your marriage, margins with your children, if you do that, then what Yeshua guarantees is that your yoke will be easy and your burden will be light, and you will find rest for your soul. That's my prayer for you today. My prayer for you today is that you would have margins. The question is, in what area of your life do you have no margins? Is it in your time? In your physical health? Is it in your relationship with your wife or husband? With your children? Relationships with other people? No time for friendships? Do you have no recreation in your life? Do you have no margins in your money? Have you borrowed? All your monthly income is consumed by paying debt. This is a life with no meekness, no margins. It's how many, many people throughout the world live. God spoke to me about that many years ago, and it was difficult to begin to make choices to set margins in all those areas. So I pray for you today, that today is your day to begin to make decisions. Not every area of your life, but start with one. In what area of my life am I going to begin to establish some appropriate margins so that I'm not overextended, overcommitted, living a life of stress? I pray for you today for an anointing of God's grace to come upon you to establish appropriate boundaries and margins so that you can walk in meekness and humility and have the yoke of Yeshua upon you, that it's easy and your burden is light and there is rest in your soul on the inside. God bless you.